New York.
Okay.
City.
What was the civil
And it was landlord-tenant issue.
Okay. So eviction.
Yes.
Okay, in a court of general jurisdiction, have you done any civil trials?
No.
Now, in the time that you've been a defense attorney, you have your own practice, you do a lot of criminal defense work.
Yes.
Okay. Well, how much of the work that you do with your practice is criminal defense work?
I would say, I think it's about 95%.
Okay. So you used to be a prosecutor, but now you're a criminal defense lawyer, right? Okay. So in your criminal defense practice, have you represented people who were accused of beating their spouses?
Yes.
Have you represented people who were accused of beating their spouses in front of their children?
Yes.
How do you feel about representing people who were accused of beating their spouses in front of their children?
How I personally feel about it is different than how I felt as a lawyer. I mean, these were cases that I took as court-appointed cases, and ethically I was obliged to represent them to the fullest extent I could and to give them the defense that I could do as given the case.
And so you do a lot of work through CPCS appointments, right?
Yes, I do.
And approximately how much of the gross earnings of your law firm for you now, when you bill, is from CPCS?
Just about all of it.
Okay, so since 2004, according to the internet, it's going to be a little bit dated, you've had about $235,000 worth of billing to CPCS over the past, it's what, 2009 now, 4.5 years. Is that about right? About $50,000 a year billable?
I think that might be how it averages out. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have sports checks?
No.
Okay, so you do all your own work and you keep all your own billing?
Yes.
Are you the same Laurie MacLeod that went to Cardozo?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you Google yourself before you came here?
Well, I have a little obsession about preparing for this hearing, so I'm somewhat familiar with what's on Google.
Okay, so did you happen to review the statements that you made to the Cardozo publication in 2001, regarding Cardozo 19, what they're doing now?
I haven't reviewed them, but you know, that's on the website, I think.
Okay. At that time, I'd be happy to, just take a look at it, because I don't want to misquote you, but at the time, from reading that, it sounds as though you made a statement saying that, basically being a prosecutor was on the side of doing good. Implication being that being a defense attorney is not. But you also went on to say that it's easier to be a prosecutor in difficult cases, such as people beating their spouses in front of their children. That was one of the cases that you cited. And that you have difficulty defending somebody like that. Here's the position that I'm in. I'm in the position of trying to decide if truth that'll show truth consequences. Will the real Laurie MacLeod please stand up? I need to figure out who the real Laurie MacLeod is before I vote. So I'm concerned that you were a prosecutor who felt you were on the side of the angels, who was in the position of being able to cast a shadow on people who do criminal defense, which is the same kind of criminal defense that you're doing now, on the public dime. I mean, these are cases that are paid for by the taxpayers. So, stepping into the role of a judge, one of the other remarks you made here was that you're frustrated with skeptical judges regarding the skepticism that the person you were prosecuting was actually guilty. Now I'd like to know, stepping into the role of the judge, how you're going to be as a judge. What I think that what you said 8 years ago is probably honest. Tempered now by applying to this position. One of the things you said in your own application was that judges need to have a balanced view of the law and protection of the public is also something that you were very concerned about in your questions regarding sentencing. So I'm very troubled by the seeming inconsistency here. And I'd like to know what you have to say.
Certainly, and it's a very good area of inquiry, and I appreciate your question in this regard. When I was interviewed for that interview, I had just received a conviction for a very violent domestic violence crime in which the victim had indeed taken herself away from her abuser and taken herself back to Florida and did not return for trial. The case was originally scheduled for trial on a date in which we were ready for trial, and the defendant even fled the courtroom when he was shown the bloody pictures that I was going to use at the trial. He fled the courtroom for about 3 years. When it came back to trial, I tried the case without the victim there, and I had some remaining witnesses and was able to obtain conviction. At that time, I was a prosecutor, and when I was interviewed for this article, I was a prosecutor, and I think that it's important for this counsel to know, and for anybody who is interested in whether or not I would be a fair judge, is to know that at that time my role was to enforce the laws of the common law. I saw that some very terrible abuse had taken place. This woman was very badly beaten, and it was my job to try to obtain a conviction to hold him accountable for what he had done to her. Now, at that time when I was interviewed, I felt that it would be difficult to defend somebody who had done that kind of a crime. I left the district attorney's office. I had been there for 12 years. I served the district attorney's office. I enforced the laws. I worked on the domestic violence task force. And I left the district attorney's office, and by oath, I'm ethically obliged to defend people to the utmost that I can defend them if I'm a defense attorney. Certainly a few years prior to that, I might have had a difficult time defending someone charged with that crime, but ethically, if I'm a defense attorney, I'm obliged to give him or her, anybody charged with a crime, the best defense possible. If I was picking and choosing my clients, it would be a different thing. I was taking court-appointed cases, and I'm happy to take the court-appointed cases and give my all to someone who's charged with a crime. That would be my job. As a judge, it's a whole different thing. As a prosecutor, I found it difficult, and sometimes I felt if I had presented a case and the judge felt that the burden wasn't met, then sometimes I was frustrated, sure, but I certainly understand that a judge has a whole different role in this process than that of the prosecutor or that of the defense attorney. I don't know, I hope that answers your question. I think it's just a clear case of different roles and really different players.
Okay, so I should read your comments at that time in the context of you being a prosecutor, and I should understand your comments as well in the context of you applying for an important position. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
It's not an important position. It is an important position, but it's in the sense that